Okay, welcome to the part one of the series of videos on basic firearm safety and how firearms are operated. In this particular one, we're going to have 4 to maybe 5 parts, and we're going to cover the 4 basic types of handguns that most people are going to generally shoot. Your single action revolvers, double action revolvers, single action autoloading pistols, and double action autoloading pistols. Now today, for part one, we're going to cover the earliest repeating handgun, which would be I should say the most practical repeating handgun. It would be the single action revolver. Okay, and a revolver is a type of firearm where the cartridges are held in a circular pattern in a cylinder of metal called a cylinder. Okay, and when the firearm is shot, the cylinder rotates and aligns the cartridge with the axis of the bore for the shot to take place. Now, all firearms, as we noted before, have 3 basic components: your frame, okay, barrel, and action. The frame is the part that holds all the pieces together. The barrel is the part that directs the bullets towards the intended target, and the action are all the internal parts that move and operate the action, like to load and unload and to fire. Okay. Now, on this particular handgun here, this is a Ruger single 6 22 Magnum. It's got a 5.5-inch barrel, and I'm just going to go over the basic parts. Okay, you have your front sight and rear sight. Obviously, you have your barrel. You have your frame, this block of metal here, trigger guard and trigger, the grip frame and the grips. You also have the hammer, and again, you can pull the trigger on this all day long, but to operate it, you actually have to cock the hammer back to release the hammer. So every time you shoot, you have to cock the hammer back and squeeze the trigger. Okay. Now you have a loading gate. Okay. You open this gate up, and this is used to load and unload the firearm. I'm just going to adjust the camera a little bit here. So again, with your shooting hand, I like to flip open the gate, and then with my non-shooting hand, I'll rotate the cylinder to drop the cartridges in place. And then when I'm done shooting, I will eject the cartridges with this rod. It's called an ejector rod, and you have to do it manually for every shot. So this is a 6-shot revolver, okay? And it's got a transfer bar safety here, so I can safely load 6 shots, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to shoot 6 shots. I'm going to show how to load, and then I'm going to load 6 shots, fire them downrange, unload, and then I'm going to do it again with the 44 Magnum. Now, the 44 Magnum is a much bigger single-action revolver. And this is primarily used for hunting or for protection against large, dangerous game like, bears and mountain lions and wild pigs and things of that nature. Okay, and then we're going to go over the pros and cons of this type of action, and then we'll move on to part 2, 3, 4, and maybe I'll add a couple of extra ones. All right. Now, to load it, again, I'm pointing the muzzle safely downrange. In all these videos, you're going to see me pointing the muzzle downrange in a safe manner. And I know it's unloaded. I'm going to take my cartridge, and I'm going to drop it into the cylinder. Okay, I'm going to push it in. Okay. You might hear some kids in the background. There's a birthday party nearby. I'll push this into place, and now I'm going to close this. I'm going to close the loading gate, index the cylinder, it locks in place. Now this handgun is considered loaded, so before I shoot, I'm going to go and grab my earmuffs so that I don't go prematurely deaf. Okay. And again, when I shoot, I'm going to have to cock the hammer back for each and every shot. Okay, so why don't we just watch this in action? Okay. There. Okay. Again, to shoot this handgun. I can pull on this trigger all day long. Nothing happens. You have to cock the hammer back for each shot. Remember the old Western movies? Click open the loading gate. Now, to eject the empty cases, I'm going to take my thumb and I'm just going to rotate the cylinder, and I'm going to manually eject all the cases out of this particular handgun. Okay. And sometimes when you miss the index, you got to go over again. Okay. Now, this handgun is now unloaded. Now let's go to the 44 Magnum. Again, I'm going to flip the loading gate open. I'm going to take my cartridges. Now, these are much bigger, as you can tell. I'm going to drop each cartridge into the cylinder chamber, or I should say the chamber of the cylinder. Okay. Then close the loading gate. Now this cylinder is locked, and again, same basic principle, except it's a much bigger gun. Okay, I fired my 6 shots. I'm going to flip the loading gate open. I'm going to eject my spent cases out. Now, some of these are just going to fall right out because these are light loads. If they were heavy hunting loads, I would have to forcefully eject each cartridge case. The firearm's unloaded, so I'm going to make sure that the firearms are pointed downrange, even though they're unloaded, for the purposes of safety. All right. So, anyways, the pros and cons. All right. Let's be positive. The pros of the single action revolver are they're very reliable. All right. They're easy to operate. Just cock the hammer and pull the trigger. Generally speaking, they're inherently accurate. Okay, a little bit more accurate than other types of handguns. The other thing, too, is they're very durable. That type of action is favored by hunting guides and trappers and people that go out in the woods quite a bit, because you know that when you cock the hammer back, it's going to go boom, no matter what. All right, they're pretty they're very durable. All right. Now the downside, as you could see, is that they tend to be slow to load and unload. So again, you have to take the cartridge, you have to take the firearm, you have to open the loading gate, drop your cartridges in individually, then close it, and then you got 5 or 6 shots. All right. And then once you're done shooting, you have to pop the loading gate open, and then you have to individually line up the cylinder. Generally, a lot of guys will put it up against their chest and then kind of do one of these. Some people are really good at it. I like shooting these particular types of firearms, but it's not the first choice for most people. Again, this type of firearm is favored in use by people who like to just recreationally shoot, hunters, hunting guides, trappers. There's also some firearm shooting games, such as Single Action Shooting Society, where it's kind of like grown-up version of cowboy, and that's used quite often. That's the only type that's actually used for the most part. So again, we'll discuss the pros and cons of that particular type of firearm, and then we'll move on to part 2, which will be the double action revolver. So on that note, take care.